Hi. Am I on yet? Okay, cool. Hi everyone. Welcome back. Yeah, Kat, I'll show you some pictures later. It's more than just gorgeous. I think that this it's kind of cool that um that we're here in this location. It's a small temple in on Tokushima Island, a small town called Shimanto. Shimanto? What's it? Shimanto. Um, and I was doing some research on this, and this was a when the Diamond Way came from China, from the Tang Dynasty, this is one of the temples that they established here in Japan. And so there's a deep connection here with the five Buddha families and a mixture of a few different traditions. So it's kind of cool where we are, being that we're also teaching the catch-up courses for the Song of My Spiritual Life. You ever get a chance to check out the temples on this island, they're extraordinary. Really, really extraordinary here. There's also a Dorje bell sitting behind me too that just happened to be here. Cat. And a purba too. It's pretty cool. Um, all right. So excuse me. There's no Chinese on the live voice. We're working on it. Okay, they're still working on the live voice. Sorry about that. Let me organize my thought for a second here. So we ended last class talking about how is it that a human birth happens. Not yet. Okay. We're still waiting for the Chinese translation to happen on live voice, but I'm just gonna get going. I'm sorry, but you'll catch up. And now it's working. Okay, cool. All right. So the when we're thinking about now that we're in this human life, okay, and what we emphasized in several ways in the last class is that coming into this life, being a human is something that took an extraordinary amount of virtue just to have it launched, like just to get off the launch pad, right? To have that, you know, Abhidharma version of the way birth happens in the next life. The Bardo being shows up, sees mom and dad, goes, that's fun, and then gets stuck. Someone asked a question during the break about this and said, well, what happens, during IVF, like in vitro fertilization? Like, does a, how does the Bardo being show up? Like, if there's no mom and dad, you know, in the conventional sense, how does this happen? And you have to think about that the Abhidharma was written from a certain point of view in a certain school of Buddhism, which is there are certain things that are more self-existent in Abhidharma than others. And the description of the physical world is relatively accurate in terms of what we're talking about patterns, like the patterns in which karmas ripen. Is ripen. but is it working yet? No. Are you guys still working on live voice? Okay, we're still trying to solve the problem. Okay. There is a bit of, you have to think about it in a way of like what's being projected, like what seeds are ripening. No, Brian, you could just put them on Zoom, I think. Yeah. So there's a way that there's a way that it's accurate and there's a way that it's inaccurate. And you have to think about this for. Is that on our Zoom? Is that happening on our Zoom? Well, hold on. Is everybody hearing the Chinese translation on our Zoom? Oh, no, I don't want that. No. Okay, sorry about that. I'm sorry. We're just having technical problems. Okay. Sharon, can everyone hear Sharon translating Chinese? No. Okay. Yeah. Yep. But I can't teach with that. No, I can't do that. No, the translator that you're hearing is not Sharon. There's a second. There should be a second person here. We're solving a problem. Hold on, everybody. The thing is, Sharon, we have you in an interpreter channel, but we don't have you on live voice. You have both running? They're not hearing live voice here. Could you check yours on your side? Okay.
This is, I see problem. I already sent message in chat. She use 5 houses link, not ECSM. This is why.
Well, then can you get her to fix it, please?
Yes. I hope Laura sent already correct link to Sharon. Because Sharon used different.
Just send her the link, please. It's not your fault. Sorry, it's just we have like a lot of people here too, and they can't hear the class. So Sharon, Marina's gonna send you the correct live voice link. Okay, cool. All right. Okay. I'm going to continue on, and then I think it'll start working very soon. Okay, good? No. Okay. All right, so.
有听到.
So the thing that happens after a human, you come out and you're living in your thing, you're living as a life as a human, is that there's 4 main ways. So Brian, you're going to go to slide 3. There's 4 main ways that we sustain our own life, like things that provide us with nourishment. All right. And there's a reason why we're going through this, and we'll touch on that in the end. Is that obviously one of the things that keeps us going is food, right? Is one kind of sustenance, and one of the things I realized probably this afternoon with the headache that I had is I just wasn't eating enough food. I wasn't eating enough grounding food, so I went and grabbed some stuff, and then, things got a lot better. But, food is like is a thing that keeps us.
Vừa này em mua cho mẹ ăn bánh.
It's interesting. Um, but the interesting thing that keeps us moving is not just food, right? Next slide, Brian. You know, this feeling of like sustained contact with the senses, right? Like in a sense of like there's in a that involves some kind of experience of pleasure, right? So in this case, like hugging, like this actual like physical contact. Like I don't know how if many of you have this similar experience that I do, but if I haven't like been around people for a long enough time, like for if there's been too much time in between, I start to feel anxiety. I start to feel, I don't know, like something is like my energy gets depleted. But then once I'm around other people, like I meet with my friends, like they're like my really good friends, then I have this kind of feeling of like nourishment. Like hanging out with those people really does something that's more than just like food, right? It's like food for the soul. Like so things that bring us enjoyment, like through the objects of the senses. That's another kind of nourishment. Third one, Brian. Hope. Hope will keep you going. And the example that they use in the text is not, is a kind of hope that if you're about to die, but then you look 100 meters ahead and you see water, that hope will keep you alive for another 100 meters. Like there's a thing that will then push you through and give you that extra edge. But even if you think about it in terms of like positive hope, like if you have hope that things will be better, if you have hope for a better life, if you just have that feeling that things are going to turn out okay, that is a type of nourishment. And then fourth one, Brian, like we call it consciousness, like things that nourish the conscious mind, such as meditation. That if you continually do meditation on an ongoing basis, you will have a kind of nourishment. And this is from my direct experience as well, where I will have a kind of restedness and alertness and awareness that starts happening just by meditating and nourishing my consciousness. But these four types of nourishment, these four types of sustenance, unfortunately, don't actually sustain our life. It might sustain us from day to day, but it doesn't really karmically keep us going. It actually they're actually called stained sustenance. Like there's a kind of, each one of these things perpetuates suffering and are actually the root of all sickness, cancer, and agony. And they bring about old age and death. And if you really think about it, like the food that we eat, the relationships that we have, the hope that we have, right? Even our meditation practice, all with the wrong view, they're all just wearing seeds out, day in and day out. So the things that the reason the Abhidharma talks about this, and the reason we're talking about it right now, is because the things that we do on a day-to-day basis are not the things that are going to sustain us in the long run. It doesn't mean don't eat, and it doesn't mean don't do those things, and it doesn't mean don't have friends. That's not what this means. But what it means is that the things that do sustain our karmic bank account, the thing that will push us forward so that we don't have to repeat this suffering, are not those things. Okay. But we do them anyway, right? And we think they're going to take us forward. And yeah, they just take us forward until we just can no longer sustain our life at all. It doesn't matter how much food you eat. It doesn't matter how much medicine you take. It doesn't matter how much biohacking you do. you know, it doesn't sustain us. Happy birthday, Kat, by the way. I know it's a week or late, but it's the birthday month. And so what happens is that we were talking about how our negativities perpetuate, even though we had the good fortune of being born a human, those negativities still keep popping out. And if we're not careful, your seeds will take you on a destination to some really bad places. And so the next part of this course, we're going to talk about the 8 different hell realms. And we're going to talk about what goes on there. And it's pretty nasty. So I'm sorry this class is a little slightly depressing. Okay. But I want you to if you walk away feeling like, wow, no, all this stuff is really not pleasant. Each and every one of you should probably just go and meditate afterwards and think about emptiness, because that's going to give you a little bit of hope, supposedly. So here we go. Next slide, Brian. Nope, next one. All right. Gemini was my best friend yesterday. So, hell realm, lowest hell realm, Nardme, no respite. Okay. This is the worst of the worst. That any kind of suffering you can imagine happens here, and it's unlimited, and there's no interruption whatsoever. There's no breaks. You don't get to sleep. You don't get to the sun doesn't come out for 5 minutes. you know, it's like having at least, when you have a teacher, you usually get about 5 minutes between success and your next project. You don't even get 5 minutes. It is just constant. All right. This is a pretty good representation. That's the worst of the worst. Next one, Brian. This one's called Revive. And this reminds me of video games when I was in college. We used to play these first-person shooter games where you're running around shooting at each other. And then, someone shoots you and you die in a game. And your body's like this. And then you respawn and you come back to life and you do it again. You get shot, then you're like this time. And then you revive, you come back and you run around again. And that's what this is sort of like what this hell realm is like. Basically, everyone's running around, beating each other up until everyone's dead. Okay. Then there's a voice that comes in the sky and it goes, revive. And then they all pop back up. and they all look at each other. There's a little bit of a break, and then they just start running around killing each other again. Right? So it becomes this constant cycle of like battle, everyone's dead, come back to life, and then do it again. Rinse and repeat. The wash cycle. All right. Next one, Brian. This one is called Lines of Black. All right. There's two types of beings here, actually. So you have it kind of, I guess, they probably don't look like people, but, that's fine. So there's the people, and then there's the guards, right? So you see that the bigger guards. And so first, the guards cover the bodies of all the other beings in black lines. Right? And then they slice them up along the lines, like like you put a line in the fabric and you're cut. They put them in the bodies, and then they slice up the bodies like meat, like meat at the grocery store. Okay. So as you can see, this isn't as bad as no respite. No respite, you have no relief. At least in this case, like you have some time between coming back to life and then getting cut up. Right? The anticipation is happening, I suppose. But you have a little bit of like relaxed time, I guess, if you want to call it relaxing, downtime. Um, but as you can see, like, this is not pleasant at all. Next one, Brian. Okay, this one's called Smash. Gather and smash. So what the Hell Guards do, instead of in this one, they don't draw lines on you. They basically gather all the beings together into like a little clump, right? And then they smash them down, smash them into a pulp. That one's exciting, I guess. I don't know. Next one. Okay. This one's called Screaming. They're basically screaming in pain because their bodies are being burnt. Right? They're being seared by heat. All right. Next one. This one's called Great Screaming. All right. This is even worse than the previous one. Like they're just louder and it's more horrible to listen to. All right, next one, Brian. This one's just called Heat. So in this one, the beans get shoved into containers, chambers, and then they're burnt inside. And then the last one, Brian, is that the chambers are hotter and they're like made of ceramic and there's two or double walled thick, right? Okay. So this sounds like extremely pleasant, right? This is not where we the eighth one is called Superheat, I think. Yeah. Rabdusawa. Superheat. Super hot. And like, what is this supposed to be? Like, is there really a difference between them? Probably a little bit. But, you can probably sense, and there might be something inside of you that might remember something like this. You've probably had dreams. Okay, can we go to a different slide just because I don't want to look at this anymore? I don't know. What's the next one? Okay, we can just look at her. She's thinking, and we'll talk about her in a second. The live voice is working now, by the way. If you want to listen. You know, again, this idea that the hot realms or these hot hells or cold hells or all these other places are like actual places that would go is not quite accurate, right? It's a collection of like basically your karma is opening up that you could be in a hot hell realm right now where you are. Like you don't have to travel to some exotic land. You know, or that, you know, it's your karma throwing it, and it comes from negative deeds. It comes from hurting other people, right? And then it just grows so big that then you're just put into a place where then you're just hurt over and over and over and over again until you eventually burn that out. And I don't know about you, but I don't want to go there. You know, I don't want to see that ever again. And so part of the motivation of this class is how do we not do that? How do we avoid it? You know, the first thing you probably should do is get your book out and start like you know, making sure that your top 10 deeds are like impeccable. You know, and it's okay if you're making mistakes, but like we want to over time be reducing them. And so now comes even a more depressing point. Okay, I'm sorry. There's just too many depressing moments here. So we have this lady who's waiting for a train. She's waiting for the subway. She's by herself. She's been waiting a long time. How long must we wait to gather the goodness that is required to become a totally enlightened being? Right? How long do we have to wait? Right? Like, you know, she's been waiting quite a long time. And if we think about it ourselves, you know, we've been waiting probably a long time. You know, we've been waiting a long time in this life. Tracy, by the way, the other day I taught a class and you didn't show up. And I did the definition of bodhicitta. And I was like, where's my Tracy? So good to see you. But you see, we have this other thing that happens, right? We've been cycling through the ups and downs, like down to the hell realms, up to the high realms, all of this up and down. How long does it take to reach Buddhahood in the normal way? And unfortunately, the number is countless. Countless numbers of great eons. In fact, it's just not countless numbers. It's 3 countless numbers. 3 times countless. It's 3 times infinity. Okay. You know, and countless refers to a number that's 10 that has 59 zeros after it. Okay. 10 to the 59th power times 3. All right. It's an enormous, impossible number to fathom. You know, and so what we're trying to say here is, look, there has to be a way to do this, and there has to be a faster way to do this, and there is. And that's why we're finishing up this course. That's why we're finishing up the next course, and that's why we're going to be in October going to start learning how to make it faster, right? Because if you just do it the normal ways, you'll just be going up and down for, who knows how long you're in those three countless eons. Like, where are you in that process, right? And we want to find a way to basically plant the best seeds, plant them as fast as we can, get them to grow as fast as we can, and make them as large as we can, and then purify all the negative stuff. Right? Your practice turns into two things: plant good seeds, purify bad seeds. That's it. It's not more complicated than that. You're just gardening. You're gardening with super gardening tools. Right? And those super gardening tools are a deep understanding of karma and emptiness. And if you have an opportunity, like, rewatch those classes that Geshe-la has given over the last, a year and a half. Now that I'm doing a catch-up course, like, they are bold. There is so much in those that, and it's so woven well together. Like, there's so many little gems in that. And I know Kat's been teaching this a lot too. Like, there are little gems that can accelerate this process that you may not even realize what's happening right now. Right? So if you don't want to go to a hell realm, and if you think 10 to the 59th power 3 times over is just a little bit too long, come in October. That's my selling point. I know you guys don't believe me yet, but just do it. You'll see it. Next slide. So there's a question about, in this course, about when does an enlightened being appear in this world? And they don't appear when things are getting better. They tend to appear when things are getting worse. So when lifespans are getting longer, they tend not to appear, because people don't have that, they're not worried as much. Like, imagine if we lived 500 years or 1,000 years, right? Would you worry as much about things? And apparently there's been times when our lifespans have been that long, according to the Abhidharma. And apparently is what it says. And you can think about this and think about it from a point of view of emptiness, is that the longest lifespans that they record is about 80,000 years, which is a lot, right? But a Buddha tends to show up when the lifespan has gone down until about 100 years. So when our lifespan is around 100 years is when they show up. When it's less than that, there's not enough time to practice. And you can think about this, like, is this literal or is this figurative? Right? I would think about it. Like, is it literal or figurative? Like, did humans live for 80,000 years? At some point. I don't know. Talk to the Abhidharma. But I think there's something for you to think about here. Next slide. Can you put her on Zoom? No. Could you put her on Zoom and she could just listen to the Zoom instead of listening to live voice? No, she's listening to live voice and said it's not working. But could you put her on a Zoom, like give her the Zoom link and she could just log into Zoom and then listen to, oh, she is in Zoom. Oh, okay, I'm sorry. Sorry, we're just having technical problems. So the whole thing here really boils down to one practice. This whole class comes down to just ACI 8 comes down to one practice. Have we contemplated our death enough? And this is a huge step in the Lamrim. Have we taken the time to really understand and really embrace the mortality that we have? Because we were born, we have to die. And that process of really accepting it is it's a journey. It's not something that just goes overnight and you say, oh yeah, I accept this death thing, right? Like you have to go through it. You have to struggle with it. And every time life will find a way to remind you if you forget. Your body will remind you. The people around you will remind you, right? You know, if you get on an airplane as much as I do, the airplane will remind you because you think about how quickly that airplane could go down. But your life is like that all the time. You know, everywhere you walk, there is danger everywhere. It's a surprise that we stay alive. You know, and so the whole thrust of this course comes down to, are you thinking about contemplating death in the right way? What is that right way? All right. So there's four steps in the death contemplation. Next slide. The problems of not meditating on death. Well, I think we just covered number one for the last 3 hours. Okay. What are some of the problems of not contemplating your death? I don't know. Hell realms, craving spirits, you know, where's your next destination? We've talked about that. All right. Next slide. Now let's, did I skip a slide? Is there one in between that, Brian? Did you punch it twice? Nope. Well, that's number 3. So number 2, I'm not sure what happened. The picture didn't make it in. It's not in this. If it's not there, then it didn't make it into the slideshow, which means I skipped it by accident. Not important. Anyhow, the first slide was about the contemplating what was it? The disadvantages of not thinking about death. Then, of course, the number 2 is the opposite, benefits of having a death meditation. Number 3, Brian, which is where we are right now. Now, this is the most important. We need to identify what death awareness we want to have. Okay. It's not just anything, and we'll talk about it in a second. And then the 4th one, next slide, is then how to meditate and develop on this awareness. How do we develop this awareness of death through meditation? Right? So what kind of awareness do we want? It's really weird, Brian, that the slide's in mine. All right, whatever. All right. Next slide. Acadia. Did you show it? No, okay. What is this not? Like, what is the awareness that we don't want to have? You know, the original picture that I wanted here was of a child being pulled away from their parents, like that sort of. I had there was a kid who went to my school that every time his mom dropped him off at the school, he would basically pull away from everyone else, and like everyone was trying to stop him, all the other adults, and he would just like scratch at them and try to get back to his mom, and like he would like run out of the school and then run down the street after his parents, like that kind of like grasping. But Gemini wouldn't let me do it with the child, that it was inappropriate, so I used a young adult instead. Okay. But the idea here is this, like, that you are the feeling that you're about to be torn away from your loved ones, like that kind of fear of death, where you're worried about leaving the people you love. You know, this is a strong attachment to others, to the people around you. And this is a natural fear. This is the fear that we all have. Like we're about to be torn away. You know, I saw this fear about 3 or 4 months ago. My one of my dearest cats was you know, she had been sick for quite a while, and you know, and I had kind of, you know, the doctors basically said she wasn't going to survive. She had fluid around her lungs. You know, it was a matter of just time when she couldn't breathe. And, you know, and so I talked to my teacher about it, and I said, I don't know what to do. Like, she's suffering immensely. And on the other hand, like, you know, bringing in assisted death transition, you know, that feels like killing her, right? Like, 'cause she still has life in her, right? And I reached out to my teacher, and I'm like, I don't know what to do. Like, she's suffering, and like, you know, I can see her breathing, like she's struggling to breathe for days. And he said that his Lama said that when the suffering is hopeless, you know, then the karma is completely different. If you choose to, you know, help your pet transition, which I thought was really beautiful. If the suffering is finally hopeless, you know, and it was a beautiful teaching, the whole thing. And I remember I was telling my cat, her name was Mama G, and I was telling her, I said, look, it's up to you. You tell me what you want. I'm not going to make this decision for you. Um, and she was struggling for breathing. Her eyes were like glazed over, like she had cataracts. She couldn't see very well. And I was like, I'll do whatever you want. If you want to keep fighting, we'll keep fighting. And one day like I could tell it was really hard for her. Like there was really nothing we could do. And she looked up at me, you know, she kind of turned her head, and she couldn't see very well anymore, but she looked up at me, and it was like magic. Her eyes went from cloudy to like perfectly clear. It was like a came over her, right? And she looked at me, and it was the look and the feeling and the communication. It's, we know, I've had it for 20 years, well, 15 years. And, you know, she was like, help me now. I need help. And then her eyes went back. It was like they cleared up for that one moment of communication. And then they went back to like cloudy again. And I was like, okay, all right, we'll do this. And Anyway, I was debating whether or not to tell the story because I would get upset, but I think the point of it when I get there is relevant. Um, so I found a woman who does this for families. Like she comes over and takes and does the transition care in your home. And so, she came over and, I scheduled it for the afternoon and all those things. And she came over and, she kind of explained all the things that were happening. And, in the first stage of the death process is they inject a like a sedative in the animal to calm them down so they're relaxed. Like, and then the second stage is when they, anyway. So we're sitting there, right? And everyone's crying, like just like right now, and petting her and all the things. And she did when she did the first injection, you know, up until this point, Mama G was relaxed. She was ready to go. Like she had been, um, like throughout the day was fading, and it was very difficult for her. Like she could only walk a little, like for like maybe like a meter, and then she would have to stop and all those things. Um, but as the vet put that first injection in her, the sedative, she did this. No, no, no. I'm sorry. You're sharing this. I'm sorry. She did no, just the same slide. I'm sorry. I didn't realize you were sharing. Did this reach out? She reached out, right? And she just like was like no, and then she like, that last effort, like grasping to this life. And she tried to bite the vet, and she was like, no, 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 don't do this, don't do this. It was like it was too late, of course, at that point. Um, but she showed me that grasping. So, but that's what we do. Like we hold on, we hold, we hold on to our life in that way. And she crawled over to me, and I held her, and she didn't actually need the second injection. She finally relaxed, and I felt her transition in that moment. It wasn't, so in a way, it wasn't like the way that it happened is it wasn't it wasn't an assisted transition, right? It just was, she had a sedative, she relaxed, and then that's when it was okay for her to leave. But that the reason I'm telling this, even though it's really hard, is that grasping that we have to this life. Like that's what we're doing all the time. And being ripped away, like that fear that we're gonna have, that we're gonna lose something. And even if you do all the logic and you can think about the seeds will keep ripening, and you've done all the right things, like to be able to prepare yourself for that last grasping onto this life, that takes tremendous amount of skill, practice, resolution, and understanding. And it's a very, very hard thing, because in those moments, that grasping on is what throws you into the next life. The seeds that come out in that moment, that's holding on to the self, and then you're about to lose it. It's a powerful thing that we've all gone through and will all go through. You see. Next slide. So if that's like understanding that fear is not the death meditation, that is not the death meditation we want to do. That's not the awareness that we want to have. Like I just spent that whole long thing about the thing not to do. But it's very important because that grasping on is what keeps us cycling. The awareness that you want to have, right? And this picture is about like, what do people say in funerals when people die young? If you've ever gone to one, it's the most depressing thing, right? It's like they could have been this. They died too young but they couldn't achieve all the things that they had hoped for in life. And they were such a wonderful person. And then they talk about all the cool things and all the dreams that they had. Right? And so the awareness that we want to develop is the fear that we might not be able to achieve our goals for our future life in this one. Because we might die, and we're going to die. We should have a fear that we're not going to reach the goals to prepare ourselves for the next ones and hopefully get out of this one now. You know, to be able to get to a place where you don't have to go to the lower realms. You know, to be able to achieve that ultimate good. That's the death meditation you want. Like, and that's a positive thing, right? It's a complete shift. It's a complete shift of the way that you relate to death. Because if you relate to it that way and you know that you've achieved certain kinds of goals, then when that moment comes, you won't be afraid. Like, what are some of those goals, right? What are some of those places to be, you know? And you know, and so what we, you know, can you get to a point then you won't be afraid, that you won't grasp on like Mama G did, right? And have that last moment that you can pass peacefully, right? And there are certain realizations that one can have that can get you to that place. And you know, there's a place in the path of preparation, Jorlam Se, like mastery, you know, which is the third stage, which is the third of the four stages, where then you'll never have to go to a lower realm again, even if you don't see emptiness directly in this life. Right? And that has to do with understanding the emptiness of the self, like having a realization around that. You know, could you reach a point in your understanding of the pen, you know, that you never have to go to a lower realm? You know, if an aria could teach you to do that in this lifetime, great, right? Maybe there's a reason why we're always repeating the pen over and over again, right? Then you can relax. Like, okay, so you didn't get all the way, but God, you got pretty far. You know, and that's what our practice is about, is to have that awareness that if we can reach certain goals, then we don't have to be afraid of the next transition. a transition just becomes another stop on a stop on the subway. It's like, oh, okay, I'm just gonna throw off this body and I'll get another one. Great. You know, true, you will get another one, but it depends which one you want. And with a real death meditation, you you will put aside things that get in the way of that of blocking that. People, time, boundaries, all of the things that get in the way of doing that, you will just say no to politely and kindly and all those things, right? But you won't waste your time. You won't waste your time with all those things. You won't waste that time within yourself, right? So next slide, Brian. Lifetimes are not fixed, right? It's like rolling the dice. Like you never know what you're going to get. Some babies come out and die within, right away. Other people live to 120. Which one is you? No idea, right? You don't know if you're going to be 10, 20, 50, 120, or 200. I feel like there's like 110 in this one. That's what I'm going for. But I don't know. I feel like 110, but who knows what that means, you know. The next slide. The things that kill you are many, all right? There's so many things that can hurt you. This is why parents worry so much about their kids, because intuitively that there's more things out there that can hurt them than keeps them alive. Okay. And then lastly, Brian, is our bodies are extremely fragile. Like the other day, I was playing fake football with somebody, American football. And they were like, go long. And I was like, okay. So I went to run like to the other end of the parking lot. So they could throw a fake football at me, right? And we were just kind of, imagining like kids. In that run, when I pushed off my foot, I rolled my ankle. I twisted my ankle playing fake football. I was like, this is so irritating. In my mind, I thought I could do that, but then my ankle was like, no, you're not doing that. The things that can break us are so much more. Our bodies are so fragile. I was on an airplane the other day. Where was I? In LA, I was on a short vacation and came out of LA, and we landed, and the pilot hit the brakes really fast on landing, and everyone went forward, like jerked forward. And that's why my neck hurts. And there was kind of this moment of like really intense like movement, and I just had this thought of like, oh my God, like that's how quickly you can die in an airplane. Like if that were an actual crash or something, like that was happened so fast, you would have you wouldn't process any of it. You would just be, knocked out. Like that'd be the end of it. It's like, whoa, that was fast. These bodies are very, very fragile. The things that keep you alive are much less than the things that can hurt you. So what's, the thing that's sustaining us? So next slide. Knowing that we will have to die. Something's not right. Hold on. Okay, no, go to slide 30, please. I'm sorry. Knowing that we have to die, we have to resolve right now to begin to practice, right? Get on that starting line and go. You know, we have an app for you being released in July where you can track all of your meditations and all of your vows through the 30-30-30 program. And I'll show it to you in July, right? All the things that we're doing at Five Houses are designed to help you keep starting all the different things. Just keep trying. And our job here at the organization is to keep giving you opportunities to do this, you know, all the different creative ways, right? That's why we're doing these courses. That's why I'm offering this course. This is why we're doing all these things. Just keep trying, right? Just keep swimming. And that's what a whole bunch of swimmers, right? Next slide. You know, and this is about like the second one is that knowing that we could die at any time, we have to start immediately, right? And it says to give up our worldly work. And I want to comment on this for a little bit. It's not that we give up our life and we just throw everything away and we say give up on the worldly work and just practice dharma, right? That's not what this is saying. And if we think about it in terms of going for refuge, like going for real refuge, like going for refuge is about understanding that everything that is happening that you perceive, think, say, and do has emptiness. Every single thing is imbued with emptiness. Everything has potential. Everything is arising out of seeds because of how you treated others in the past. And it has the potential to be anything depending on how the seeds can ripen in the future. And imbuing that view, your view of the world in emptiness, just like this tea that is infusing the water. The water is imbued with the tea. You can't separate the tea from the water anymore. Right now, your glass of your awareness, you're putting emptiness into it, and it's starting, like, you know, that in that moment when you put the tea bag in, and then you can see like the little drops of the tea coming out, like the streams of it, before it's mixed up with the water. Like that's what we're doing right now. Like all of these classes are like putting these streams of tea into your water, infusing it with emptiness. It hasn't like completely mixed up yet, right? But stream by stream, we're adding more and more opportunities and more ways for us to continually imbue all of our thoughts, words, and actions with this idea of where things are coming from and what they could potentially be depending on how the seeds that you have. Right? So in this, in this death meditation, right, we have like the idea is we have to start and we have to quit our worldly work. And by quitting our worldly work means stop doing things ignorantly. It means going for refuge in all the things that we do. Doesn't mean, throw everything away and then, put on a loincloth and walk around, India, okay, and be a wild yogi. That's not what it means. You can do that if you want. I hear it's fun. Difficult too. And then last slide, Brian. And since nothing else can help us, we have to devote ourselves to our practice. Right? And if you're hiking, they say, you don't put a whole lot of junk in your backpack. Right? And why did I choose this picture? The line in the text is saying a man hiking in the forest, doesn't fill his backpack with a lot of stuff. But why is this guy carrying a dog? Right? Right? Master of Sangha. Right? Why, if you understand all of those things, if you understand what you're putting into your backpack, then you might be able to meet these incredible beings. If you take the tea of emptiness and infuse it into everything, then you'll travel light. And then death isn't something that's a a painful thing or a scary thing. It's just the next step. But heed the warning that without all of that, that next step could put you into any of those places. And you just don't know what's going to pop out. You just don't know. So let's design it so that what pops out in that transition is something good and enjoyable and like worthy, of us, of our continued evolution. And that's how we can really help people. Right? That's how we can really help people. Nice. Emptiness. I'd love that. That's a great t-shirt, Anastasia. I think that's the winner of all of them. So, in an act of surprise, we're done 20 minutes early. I'm really like, it's amazing. I am following all the work that you're doing, all the study guides, all the study group leaders, everyone coming together to continue to keep working to finish these courses. The completion karma of finishing all 18 of those courses is extraordinary. And you can't imagine why it's extraordinary. So keep going. We're halfway there. We're over halfway there now. Okay. We were the halfway point an hour ago. And now we're over halfway. Please keep going. Please, don't lose the motivation. Keep on working. Keep on, I know some of you are completely dedicated to offering all the support. Just keep going. Just keep swimming. When we get to about 70-75%, that's where it's going to get difficult, and then it'll lighten up, because we have course 11, 12, and 13 in a row, and they're hard. So we're not there yet. But again, Anastasia or whomever, please get the Malaysia thing up, the Malaysia QR code. So what's coming up is incredibly important, I would say, is that in the next week and a half, I don't know, starting on July 7th, we're going to be in Malaysia with Geshe Michael with the 5 houses. And he's going to be completing course 6 of Bridge to the Diamond Way. And I think I've told this to many of you, but I'm going to repeat it again. Of course, I said I was done. I'm not done. Is he redesigned the entire course. He took everything we did, everything we approved, and then pushed it off the table, and then went into a retreat and redesigned the whole thing. And he's announcing the new program, what he's going to be calling his new Diamond Way program there. And he's also going to be offering meditations every day. So he's he's adding more classes and more time with us. And you don't want to miss this. And the more you can come live, the better. And you'll understand why later. And I don't mean live necessarily in person. We still have some seats available, but online. You know, there's something that he's up to that I don't think he hasn't been able to communicate it, because he said, you can't understand what I'm doing. And I'm like, that's great. What I can do is I can sell it. And I can sell you on sitting in meditation with him is one of the most extraordinary things. And he'll be offering meditation the entire time. So please don't miss that for the world. And our programs are free, as always. Of course, there's some that you can. We have a certain offering, as if you can't afford that, it really helps us keep the teachings for free. But it's if you can't afford our normal cost, of course you can pay whatever you can, and that can be up to $0. You know, but please come. Like, don't miss this course. Like, I always say don't miss the course, but I'm really saying don't miss this one. You know, the schedule should be online shortly if it's hasn't been released yet. Please put the QR code up. Put it in the chat. There we are. All right. There it is. You can come in. I'm in person. We still have some seats left. Coming online as well. Please do sign up for this. And then if you didn't get the transmission request in, get that in very shortly. We will be announcing very soon what that's going to look like, and branch locations as well. So, all right. Thank you all for joining. I hope you all have a wonderful day. There's ACI 8. We have 7 more courses left, and hope to see you in a couple weeks in Malaysia. All right. Thank you all for joining. Turn on your cameras, turn on your microphones, and say goodbye to each other, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you so much. Please keep teaching us.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Thank you, dear teacher.
Oh, there we go.
Hey.
Hey.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, bye-bye.
Thank you, dear teacher.
Happiness imbued. Things. Thank you.
Muchas gracias.
Дякую, teacher.
Gracias, Tim.
Thank you.
Muchas gracias, maestro Luis.
Дякую, Lama team. Дякую.
Danke.
Muchas
gracias, maestro Tim. See you in Malaysia.
Gracias, maestro Tim. Por favor, quédate.
Thank you, teacher.
Gracias, Tim.
Thank
See you in
you.
Colombia, porfa. See you at
Thank you,
Colombia
teacher.
once.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Hoặc là nhằm nâng cao hiệu quả học tập.
That's great experience. Чудовий, дякую.
Дякую перекладачам.
Grazie anche al traduttore, ha tradotto qualcuno. Sorridete a tutti quanti. Ciao ciao ciao.